afternoon. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Ask the Expert. Expert today instead of experts. The nutrition edition. I'm a registered dietitian with the New York State Office for the Aging and the New York State Program Manager for Older Adults SNAP-Ed program. My name is Lisbeth Irish, and I will be your host today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to add more variety to your breakfast and increase the quality of your breakfast at the same time. I have Tamar Elkin with me today. Our expert, Jelisa Cabrera, our other expert, had a family emergency, so she won't be here with us today, and we'll miss her a lot. But we do have Tamar, and we're going to have a great show. Tamar is a registered dietitian with the New York City region of NYSOFA's SNAP-Ed program for older adults. Welcome, Tamar.
Thanks.
Welcome back, I should say.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. Before Tamar and I talk about our topic, I want to invite our viewers to share questions about the program in the chat, and we'll get to those questions later in the program. Tamar, you and Jelisa suggested this topic to me. Can you tell me why?
Sure. I think, for me personally, my mom was born in Israel, and being that my mom was the one that cooked in our house, breakfast was always a really important meal and a really different meal than what I noticed my peers in school eating. We grew up eating a little bit more of a savory breakfast, whereas I noticed, amongst my friends, it tended to be a lot of sugared cereals or breakfast pastries, waffles and syrup, pancakes and syrup. And, I grew up eating like eggs and toast with, some cottage cheese or some fresh cheese or sandwiches, eggs and different types of, cooking methods, more vegetables. So I think just that switch from savory, I noticed there was a big difference between, our breakfasts and the typical American breakfast. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of, break down a few different breakfast examples from different cultures to see what people around the world are eating, just for some inspiration. And we could talk a little bit about the health aspect behind it too.
Yeah. What are some of the advantages of trying foods from other cultures for breakfast? You mentioned some of them, but I'm sure there's more. We'll get into some of that in detail, but what are some of the big things that you noticed?
Well, for one, I think it breaks the monotony, trying new foods, trying new recipes. How many days in a row can you eat a low-fat cottage cheese with pineapple? We're only human. We have to spice things up a little bit. So,
yeah.
And if you find a recipe and you're like, oh, I don't really like cilantro, try parsley. They're usually interchangeable. You can omit the herbs. You can add more herbs. You can add all the herbs. You have a little bit of fluidity there. But I think, it's an opportunity to also learn. Be like, oh, I had no idea that, in Japan, they eat congee for breakfast with, like a savory rice porridge. So cool, right? And it gives you the opportunity to learn, and also health, right? We're learning, that we know that vegetables are more important, and how we can start our mornings and start our day and use that energy to fuel us throughout the day, as opposed to starting off our mornings with a lot of added sugar, which is something that we know we want to try and limit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed a lot of breakfast foods have a lot of high fat content, not necessarily butter types, and also a lot of sodium sometimes. A lot of breakfast meats that people eat are
the breakfast meat. Yeah. Even the breakfast bars, right? That's something that usually a lot of people grab and go. You turn those over, any type of granola bar or protein bar, and you got to look at the ingredients. So, sometimes they're kind of like a good Band-Aid if you need one. But really, if we can start our morning off with a little bit more of a whole foods approach and real, unprocessed foods, saving those kind of snacks for later, I think you'll feel better, right? I notice it too. On days that I have a real breakfast, I have good energy and constant energy. My blood sugar is not up and down, So I think that's also something important to remember, that it's fuel for your day and you'll get consistent energy.
Yeah, I know when you eat a mixed diet, you end up having a variety of things that tend to make you feel more satisfied. I'm guilty of occasionally eating one of those bars for breakfast with a glass of milk, but I'm pretty picky about which ones I eat. I mean, there aren't too many choices when it comes right down to it.
Yeah.
And then I have to like them too. Some of them.
Some of them taste like cardboard, I know.
Or something else. But then when I eat something that's more of a mixed meal, it has a lot more satiety, or a lot more satisfying. I get to lunch without like feeling like I'm starving when I
Yeah.
eat a real breakfast. By real breakfast, I mean like something from each food group.
Sure. I noticed also with myself, if I don't get vegetables in my breakfast, I feel like something's missing. And it's a
Ooh,
habit that, I built, and now to the point where I'm like, wait, oh, okay, I'll grab a tomato. Let me grab some cucumbers. Just something that I know I'm hitting all food groups.
yeah, I think that group is particularly missing from most people's breakfast in the United States. I mean, if you look at the things that you mentioned, there's not too much of a vegetable content there. So it kind of makes it hard to get them all in if you only have a couple more chances throughout the day to eat them.
Right. I think also it's a little bit of a mindset shift, right? Like
Mhm.
when you think of savory breakfast, if you like avocado and you eat toast and eggs for breakfast, it's not so crazy to put some avocado on your toast and an egg on top, right? But there you
Yeah.
go. You're getting your protein, you're getting your whole grains, you're getting your avocado, which is the fat, also a little bit of protein, that counts towards the vegetable group. So it's an easy way to just kind of piggyback off of foods that you're already eating. If you're making scrambled eggs or an omelet, can you throw in, a quarter
Mhm.
cup of onions or some peppers? It's not asking you to turn your world upside down. These are just ideas that you can add to enhance your breakfast as opposed to, trying to overhaul something that you've been doing for a long time. So those
Yeah,
small tweaks.
we'll talk more about some of the international foods, but I think you're right. Sometimes we can take what we're already eating and just expand a little bit. One of my sisters taught me how to make or an egg in a cup in a mug, where you spray it, or you put a little olive oil in there, you crack the egg, stir it up, put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, and it comes out great. Kind of like one of the fast food places, they're,
Yeah, I was gonna say that's how you get, like an egg and cheese. Those are the types of
yeah,
eggs, or they steam them. I know Japanese
yeah,
breakfasts, they have steamed
mhm,
eggs. I made those once. That was cool. But,
yeah,
same thing. If you like eggs, even eggs alone, trying a different method of preparation.
right,
My husband doesn't like the runny yolks. I like the runny yolks. He doesn't eat poached eggs. I like poached eggs. So just
yeah.
changing the way you make it, and you might realize, oh, I actually really like frittatas. These are great.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, we have leftover refried beans from the night before, and it's not my favorite thing in the morning, but my partner, he puts those with his eggs. Or we have extra, peppers and onions that he's made for some dish the night before, and he'll put those on top of an egg and make a sandwich out of it. So it's using leftovers sometimes so they don't get thrown out.
Yeah.
We
My
always save
husband
stuff. You want to use it if you're going to
Of
save it.
course, of course. My husband thought he invented this, but he's been eating breakfast pizza, where if
Hmm.
we have a leftover slice of veggie pizza that we made, he'll scramble some eggs in the morning and put that on top of his pizza instead of toast. So he's also getting vegetables, he's also getting pizza, and he's getting his eggs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, there's all different ways you can eat. I probably mentioned my niece. She'll eat anything in the morning. She would eat that definitely, and that. It can look like she loves savory food. We had leftover collard greens, and she asked if she could have them for breakfast. I was like, "Ooh, knock yourself out there, girlfriend."
Well, speaking
Um,
of collard greens, that reminds me, I took a cooking class once for some CEU credits, and
mhm.
we made a savory oatmeal. And
Mm,
so we cooked the oatmeal and we sauteed some collard greens and mushrooms together on the side. And
yeah.
we made a poached egg or a soft boiled egg, and we ate that all together. It was something in a million years I never would have made. It was really interesting, and now I'll incorporate that into my, monthly rotations of, "Well, I don't know what to eat for
Yeah.
breakfast," but it's really filling, and if you like oatmeal and you're okay with the texture, making it savory is a really
Mhm.
nice, change of pace.
Yeah, so you're just taking things you might already do and just switching them up a little bit.
Yeah. I think
Sounds
it's
like
a good shift stepping away from the sweet breakfast.
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I have a hard time eating vegetables in the morning, but these ideas actually are things that I would do. You know, I really just like really good food. And I think sometimes it's just that, you know, I don't know. I have to be a little more creative in what I'm doing. I think also some of the things we've mentioned are also quick, and that's important. I mean, I'm trying to get out of the house to go to the office or start my day if I'm working from home, and I don't have a lot of time. So the things we've mentioned are pretty quick. It's not anything.
Yeah. I notice also, for speaking of quick, the little mini cucumbers, those Persian cucumbers. I'll
Hmm.
take those and some cherry tomatoes, and you don't even have to cut them. That counts as my vegetables for breakfast. I'll eat that with a slice of toast, an egg, and some cheese. And,
Yeah.
my mini little Israeli breakfast where you're getting, your egg, your bread, your cheese, and your vegetables.
Yeah, those are all great ideas. I think we're going to go to a commercial break. Not really. We're going to have a little video. It's going to talk a little bit about how important volunteers are to our nutrition programs in New York State. So we're going to go to that. I noticed that I need to plug my computer in. So I'm going to change my place where I'm doing this. But while we're watching the little video. Oh, I'm back. As you can see, I'm not where I was, but I'm still here.
It's fast.
So let's talk a little bit more about breakfast. Why do we even need to eat breakfast?
When I teach my classes, one of the things I, make sure to emphasize is our blood sugar levels, trying to keep them as
Mm-hmm.
steady and stable as possible. So, after going a long time without eating, right, when we're sleeping, and you have a new opportunity every morning, right? Breakfast, you get every day you wake up, you get a new chance.
Yep.
So, by using that opportunity to give you fuel, you could choose, a sugary cereal and some milk that'll fill you up a little bit, right? But then
Yeah.
after like a half hour, an hour, your blood sugar is going to go all the way up, and it's going to spike, and then it's going to crash. Whereas the more fiber and the more protein and healthy fats that you're getting, it actually helps stabilize our blood sugar, right? Giving us consistent energy. So it'll really give you that push to get you through lunch or close to it without really having to be like, what do you have over there? That smells good. Ooh, what's that in the kitchen? Did somebody bring muffins today? Those smell good, right? Where you're constantly
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Well, I think too, I just want to explain one thing about blood sugars too. I'm a diabetes educator. So, when we talk about your blood sugars going up, it's the fact that they go up within the normal range. People with diabetes come out of the normal range, but people who don't have diabetes are often, they're still in the normal range. It's just going up.
Oh, looks like we lost Lisbeth a little bit. But the idea, right, that we want to keep it steady. We want to keep our blood sugar levels as steady as possible. Oh, Elizabeth, I think you're muted.
Oh, well, I'm back and now I'm talking again.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, I always think of food as being fuel.
Mhm.
So we really have to, try to fuel our bodies throughout the day. It's kind of like running on empty is not a good feeling, whether you're, driving a car or driving your body, around.
Absolutely. And, you can feel it. If you
Yeah.
have, a crummy meal once, twice, 3 times a day, you're not going to feel great, right? But
Mm-mm.
as soon as you get yourself a nice hearty breakfast that really hits all those food groups, you feel good, you feel full, you feel energized, and it gives you that push to get you to, the next meal without having to, oh, when's lunch? What's lunch? Should we go out for lunch? What do you want to get for lunch? What are we going to order for lunch?
Exactly. Some people ask if breakfast is the most important meal. Do you think there's any validity to that, or?
I definitely think it's important. Not everyone can eat breakfast right away. I
Yeah.
remember I went on an interview once for a private practice, and they said that you have to have breakfast within 30 minutes of waking up. I said,
Mm.
30 minutes within waking up? I said, whoa, I'm still brushing my teeth. I can't eat a full meal then, right? So some people need, a little bit more time in the morning. Some people wake up and they're ravenous and they have to eat, and that's awesome. You have to wait a little bit, awesome, right? Just making
Yeah.
sure that you get that meal.
Well, I think of it too as your body is turning your appetite off overnight sometimes so that you're not waking up in the middle of the night, thinking you have to eat something. And then, it might take a while to turn back on, so that's okay as long as, you don't go too long without eating.
I think it also depends on dinner, right? Some people eat
Yep.
dinner at 8, 9, 10 o'clock. If you wake up
Yep.
at 7, you might not be hungry for breakfast. If you want to start eating more breakfast, I would say push your clock back a little bit, right? Start eating a little bit of an earlier dinner, right?
Hmm.
So that you wake up a little bit hungrier for breakfast each day. If you find that you're not a breakfast person, but you want to start incorporating it, that's usually what I'd recommend. Start with an earlier dinner, work backwards.
Yeah, sometimes I don't feel like making my breakfast, even when I have time, like on a weekend. But if I do a little pre prep the night before, then I'm all set. I just have to finish it up. Like some people do overnight oats
Hmm.
or, start something in the morning. So you're just finishing up.
Yeah, I think the idea that, one of the photos that is here was of a frittata,
Yes.
taking, whatever vegetables you have, and you can whisk a bunch of eggs and you kind of throw it in the oven. And it's a great way that takes a little bit of prep, but you have a meal, and that's going to last you at least 2, 3 portions. Where if you don't really like spending too much time in the morning, or, you throw it in the oven while you go wash up, and it's nice that you have a meal that you can kind of stretch over a few different courses.
Yeah. And we're seeing pictures of all different types of meals from all over the world. Um, One thing that I notice that there's a lot of commonalities. People like I would say in almost every part of the world, people eat some sort of hot cereal. Sometimes not in the morning, but often in the morning. And like in the Caribbean, Latin America, Africa, and Italy, they use cornmeal for
Mhm,
something they call porridge. In Scandinavia and Great Britain, they might use oats and other grains.
mhm,
Um, Cassava is a starchy root vegetable, and they use that in Brazil and some African countries to make a porridge. They use millet, which is really a seed, in some parts of Africa to make a
mhm.
porridge. And then there's kasha. You're probably more
Yeah,
familiar with that than I
buckwheat.
am. I love it, but you can do so many things with kasha.
Yeah, sure. And,
Can you
they're
tell
all whole
us?
grains. Yeah, what a little bit
Yeah,
about kasha. So
yeah.
kasha is buckwheat. So it's a classic Jewish dish, kasha varnishka, if anyone out there is
Hmm.
familiar. It's the buckwheat with bow tie noodles, which
Yes,
sounds strange. It's very simple, but very delicious.
very
But buckwheat
filling
is,
too.
yeah, it's very filling, exactly. So it's a really great way to get in fiber. I think it's also a big success with kids. Sometimes they just want like plain, buttered noodles. So this way
Yeah.
it kind of adds more fiber to your dish. I shouldn't say kids because there are adults that don't want enough fiber either. But it's a great way to get in some extra fiber into a meal. So any of those whole grains, we talk about the My Plate and we try to really
Mhm.
emphasize whole grains. Buckwheat is a great one. It's very
Yeah.
filling and it's, pretty easy to find these days.
Yep, it is. I also I really like farro, which is an ancient
Oh,
wheat.
yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
big
I
in
mean,
Italian cuisine.
yep, very much so. And polenta is sometimes we think of it probably more as a something that's kind of firm, but sometimes it's a softer porridge type base in Italy too.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
The farro, this is New York Times made a recipe with cooking the farro in apple cider. So I
Ooh.
know you're from upstate, which is right around the corner is apple cider season.
Oh
So,
yeah.
just something a little bit different, right? Where if you're normally
Hmm.
used to eating farro one way, cooking it in a different medium, I was like mind blown. I was like, wait, you can cook it in something other than water? So, any of the porridges, same thing, adding milk, adding a different liquid to cook it in is game changing in terms of flavor.
If you like, one thing I learned from my partner, who's a Culinary Institute trained chef, he makes a lot of grains with chicken broth instead of water, or vegetable broth. That gives it a whole different, if you like savory in the morning, that's a way to cook those kind of foods too. Or have them, as part of a main dish.
Sure. I cook rice and coconut milk sometimes.
Yes. Yes. Trying to think. Oh, you mentioned kanji. That's a rice cereal that porridge that's made in Japan and some other Asian countries. Sometimes they have different names for it. In the Philippines, it's called something else.
Mm-hmm.
In India, they make a hot cereal in the morning with wheat flour and rice flour. So I won't even go to
in
try
Israel, they use semolina.
Yep, semolina. You probably encounter a lot of different ways of eating with your people in the workshops that you teach in New York City, because there's such diversity there, I would imagine. Yeah. Must be fun to.
It's great. I myself learn a lot about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
fun to be exposed to so many different cultures and what they eat. A lot of like Latin America, Puerto Rico, it's beans, rice, plantains, but everyone has their own little twist on it, which is great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that's true. I miss having Jelisa here. She was telling me a lot about some of the things that she ate growing up, which are probably a lot. She's from Puerto Rico, so you probably hear a lot about different kinds of food from Puerto Rico and New York City. I went to Puerto Rico.
She also mentioned avocado too.
Yes. Yes.
Which, to me was something I only started eating, fairly recently. And she was like, we grew up with that.
Yeah. And you never know. My daughter loves avocado on toast. And she went to a Scandinavian country recently and she found out that's not what they eat there. And she was very frustrated. She ended up eating sandwiches because she likes the savory breakfast. She doesn't really care for the sweet breakfast. Though she did try some.
But that's also interesting that, over there in those Scandinavian countries, they eat a lot of fish.
Yes,
right?
They do.
So their breakfast is usually a little bit more fishier than ours would ever be. Maybe from New York, we're used to like a bagel with lox and cream cheese. But, they eat a lot of smoked salmon too, but a lot of tinned fish as well.
Yep. Mm-hmm. She found in the morning they ate pastries, which she didn't really care for. And I said, oh. So I must have raised her right, I guess. She wants to eat real, not sweet food in the morning.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, I have to say my kids don't really
French breakfast is also
yes. Yeah.
So every country is a little bit different, but
it is. Let's go to the recipes and we'll show a few of those before we go to our questions. So here's a healthy egg burrito. These are all found on Snap.
This is great because you can make a few.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make them and freeze them.
And you can freeze them too. I've frozen these. Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of great recipes. If you go to SNAP-EdNYC.org, there's a ton of different kinds of recipes, a lot of breakfast recipes. Different things. Like here's migas crumbles and a chicken vegetable no crust quiche. I've made something similar to that. Not that specific recipe, but that's a good one.
Yeah, this is good too because you make a big batch and then you can have that for a few meals or if you have a crowd coming over.
Yeah, and maybe for meals other than breakfast. I love quesadillas. So that's a great one there.
This is an easy one to add vegetables to as well. I noticed it didn't seem like there were too many vegetables in that.
No, I always
peppers, onions, corn.
I always put red peppers, things like that, and spinach in my quesadillas.
Zucchini too, if you can catch some at the end of the season. Some zucchini would be great in there.
Yeah, I used to make quesadillas for my kids, and they'd say, "What is this in here?" And I'd be like, "Oh, you'll like it," and they did because it was they didn't really know what it was. But it tasted
eggs and cheese. It'll be delicious.
Yeah. Oh, that goes for adults too. Rice breakfast bowl with fruits and nuts. I would like this with brown rice or farro or so many different things. Kasha.
Yeah.
I think
See,
that's
so
really
same
good.
thing, taking those grains and cooking it in a different medium is a great way to, turn it
Hmm.
from something you're used to eating with, meatloaf and making it into a breakfast food or a more
Yeah,
breakfast food.
exactly. Ooh, that looks good. Spanish frittata.
This is interesting also because these are the same components that we normally eat for breakfast in America, right? Potatoes,
Hmm.
eggs, just again, a different form of preparation. So, this also
Yeah.
lasts longer in that you can get a few servings out of this. Throw it in the
My
oven, throw it on a
yeah.
pan.
My partner made this for his vegetarian daughter once, and I was a little bit of a skeptic. I said, "Ooh, what's with those potatoes?" And it was so good. Let me tell you,
Yeah,
it was
that's great.
yummy.
With that, with some salad, that's a great lunch, dinner too.
Yeah. They're very versatile. Well, I think we are going to go to a clip of our Wendy. Wendy Beckman is a dietitian from NYSOFA, and she does these wonderful food demos. Um, and there's one coming up at the end of September. She does them on the fourth Friday of the month at 12:30, and they're archived on YouTube. We're going to go to a clip of one of her recipes, huevos rancheros.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wendy Beckman, and I'm a registered dietitian with the New York State Office for the Aging and SNAP-Ed New York. Thanks for joining me today on What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Today, we're going to be making huevos rancheros. We'll be posting a link to the recipe in the chat box, and you can also find the recipe on the SNAP-Ed New York website at www.snapedny.org.
Oh, we're back, and now we're going to take questions from our audience. I hope you've been putting them in there because we love questions. Oh, here's one. What if I'm not hungry in the morning? Should I still just try to eat breakfast?
This is a good one too. If it's not a habit you're used to,
Mm-hmm.
like we mentioned before, starting the night before with a little bit of an earlier dinner, starting your morning with some water, right? Just making sure that, you're staying hydrated and it sort of preps your stomach for breakfast. Water with lemon, however you like it. But, if you can eat breakfast, try to figure out, how you can incorporate it into your morning.
Right. You might not call it breakfast, but maybe you're eating at mid morning. It may not be at the crack of dawn, but it might be a little bit later. Or you could split up different foods into snacks, and together it might be, what would be a breakfast. You could have a little bit of avocado on toast and then have some fruit later on, or some raw vegetables and hummus. I love hummus. I could eat that in the morning for sure with some vegetables. But it might not be,
Oh,
it
yeah,
might
easily.
be a small breakfast and maybe a mid morning snack with something like that. Oh, you
Sure.
kind of mentioned using herbs and spices in breakfast foods. Do you want to expand on that, Tamar?
Sure. We grew up with this. A popular breakfast food in Israel is an herb omelet,
Hmm.
where, you basically just take all the herbs. You take, basil, dill, parsley, cilantro, it could be fresh oregano. That's a big ingredient over there. And you just throw it into your omelet. And it's an
Mm-hmm.
easy way to really just season and flavor whatever you're eating without any added sugar, fat, salt, right? Things that we want to try and limit. So it's a great way to season your food without any of those additives, and it just makes everything taste fresher and look nice, right? It's a garnish, but really adds a lot of color to the food as well.
Yeah, you did
So
some
it could be,
container.
they're all pretty interchangeable.
Oh, our audio is a little bit not in sync. Sorry about that. I cut you
Yeah.
off there. You did some container garden
Oh, that's
distributions, right? In New York City.
yeah. And it
So
was
you,
Yeah, we over 1,000 plants to, older adults. We were able to give them different types of herbs, and this would
mhm.
be a perfect way to use it.
Yeah, it's so nice to have fresh herbs. We have fresh parsley and fresh mint. Um, those are the two. Oh, and basil. Those are the three we're
Even
growing in.
mint, you could throw that into the eggs.
Yeah, I had something we made last night called fattoush. It looks like a salad, but you put a little mint and
Yeah,
a little
that's your salad, sure.
parsley, and you put some pita chips that are crisped up in the oven that we made ourselves. And we made the dressing too from a recipe. And I could definitely eat that in the morning. It's such a refreshing salad. But you know, I love using.
Fattoush salad is great. If you add a little sumac.
Yeah, exactly. What's your favorite breakfast of all time? What's yours? Do you have a favorite
My
one?
favorite breakfast, what I had this morning. Yep, I have a 7-minute egg, a slice of toast, and either some cottage cheese, or I'll do some butter, or I'll do some fresh mozzarella cheese, you know, the little balls, and peppers, avocado, cucumbers, and tomatoes.
Sounds great.
And I'll make myself like a little plate, kind of like a deconstructed salad. You know, I'll just chop it roughly, and it's the most filling, the most colorful. I hit all my food groups, and it's a great spread.
That's great. Yeah, I had.
What about you, Lisbeth?
I love like a plain yogurt with fruit, or vanilla yogurt with fruit and nuts. Like today, I took a trail mix and put it in a vanilla yogurt. I do have a sweet tooth. No, you know, I can't lie. But then I also had some hummus and raw vegetables as a snack later on mid morning. So, you know, even if I can't eat the vegetables at the crack of dawn, I can do something later in the morning and get all those food groups in. So those are some of my favorite, because those are all my favorite foods. Yeah. Best vegetables to eat? Probably any vegetable.
Even yogurt is something you can make savory.
Yes, I've done that. Where I put
the best ones are the ones you'll eat.
That's right. I totally agree. I think the really colorful ones are the ones I go after, because I know those are loaded with nutrients I need. But I always say if it grows, you know, it's not poisonous and it grows out of the ground, it's probably good for you, you know, or on a tree or whatever. Yeah, I think the best
Sure.
ones are the ones we'll eat.
It's, you know, it's the same thing with whatever good habits you can form, are the ones you'll stick to.
Yeah. I have to say one of my other favorite breakfasts is oatmeal, because you can do, like you said, make it savory. You can just do so many different things. And I like eggs all different ways too. So I try to mix it up, because I know if you eat the same things
Fun to
every
experiment
day,
with them.
yeah, you're getting the same nutrients every day if you eat the same thing every day. So you try to, you know, mix it up a little bit. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. And I want to thank Tamar for her time and her expertise. She always has such great ideas to share. And I want to thank our audience for sharing their questions and comments. We know that the healthiest choice isn't really always the easiest choice, but if you make small changes, you can make a big difference. If you try to make half your plate fruits and vegetables, probably with a big emphasis on the vegetables, it's one of the most important changes you can make in your diet. And adding them to your breakfast is a great way to get them in. USDA funded this program, and SNAP-Ed programming provides free education for all those who are eligible for SNAP or currently receive SNAP benefits. To find out where SNAP-Ed is happening in your area, call New York Connects at 800-342-9871. And we want to help you save time, money, and eat healthy. So take advantage of all the programs. You heard Tamar talk about container garden distributions that they did in New York City. Those are happening all over New York State, different times of the year, through the SNAP-Ed program for older adults that NYSOFA sponsors. And next, let's see, in this October, on October 13th, Friday at 1 o'clock, we'll have Beth McCarthy, who is an amazing nutrition educator from Oswego SNAP-Ed program. And she'll be talking about more ideas of how to balance your diet and finding your own healthy eating way of eating style. So this episode of Ask the Experts, again, was funded by the United States Department of Agriculture, which is an equal opportunity provider. Join us next time for Ask the Experts, the Nutrition Edition.